You're welcome back, and Good Morning Nigeria is still on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We just signed off the presidential candidate of the Save Nigeria Congress along with the National Secretary of the party. Now we're having another presidential candidate join us for this conversation, along of course with his Director General. And I hope you do know as a viewer that there are two Buharis who will be contesting the presidency on the 16th of February. First, of course, is the incumbent President Muhammadu Buhari, and joining us now in the studio is Ahmed Buhari. He is the presidential candidate of the Sustainable National Party. Ahmed Buhari, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
It's my pleasure. Good to be here.
All right. And along with his Director General, that's of his campaign organization, Adu Oyinlade. Mr. Adu Oyinlade, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
It's nice to be on the program. Thank you, gentlemen. Gentlemen, you're welcome. Now, the concept of your party is hinged on the need to take the country to a different direction. Now, what do you intend to do differently if you're elected into office?
Thank you. So we did make a declaration on the 1st of October 2016 that we were going to run for the office of the president at the time when people thought this was something not to be thought of. They felt it was crazy, you know, but I'm glad that the political space is more exciting now. There are more people wanting to vie for the office, but I don't want us to look at it like a distraction. It's more like maybe people are getting more interested in governance, in politics, and how people emerge and get into office, which is very key for our people. So for us, we've been around the country in the last 2.5 years trying to talk to people, but the one thing that you cannot separate the people from is the fact that there is hunger. And so no matter what you want to sell to the people, no matter what you want to say to the people, it doesn't sink in. And the reason why it doesn't sink in is because there's a disconnect. You cannot really, some of them you ask them to choose between their bellies and their heads, and in all honesty, they actually choose their bellies. That is because of how hunger has become the major issue. And that is why we want to declare a state of emergency upon assumption into office. There's no how you can have a productive people if there is hunger. And we may just be here in a nice, cozy room, believing that everything is right, but the moment you go out of the urban areas, you go to real poverty, and you see that people are totally disenfranchised, especially from the grounds of food. And that is why we want to engage ourselves totally into the agricultural sector by releasing all the reserves, so the silos and things like that, all the green reserves that we have should actually go out to the people. There should be surplus of food in the system before we start talking about anything else. And when there's surplus of food in the system, then we can start talking to the people and start getting them to become productive. And that is why we're going to pull young people into the agricultural sector, not just agriculture that stops at the farm gate, not just mechanized farming, but agriculture that crosses across the entire value chain. So from the farm gate to the processing plants, to what we have to store, to the packaging plants, and all delivery in logistics. And then whatever we have in excess, we start talking about export. But primarily, we have to be belly full before we start talking about anything export. So I find it really sickening sometimes when I hear the Minister of Agriculture tell me that they're excited about exporting 40,000 tons of yam, when in reality, the people here are hungry. But you know, what's even more sad about it is that this yam, tubers of yam, go out and to the United States, for example, and they do not actually consume them as yam. They actually extract from those yams what you use in the pharmaceutical industry, what you use in the cosmetic industry, and then sell it back to us at premium. And this is the problem. And that is how you export not just unfinished, unprocessed produce, but our jobs. That is where we want to start from. And then we'll start talking about uniting our people, because more than anything else, it's clear that we are not a united people, and no people can progress without that unification. And people say, oh, we can't be united. We have so many differences. Some of us are Christians, some of us are Muslims, North House, you know, whatever people want to describe them. All those things that divide us, ethnicity, religion, social status, political party, ideological affiliation, gender, even age brackets. What we're saying is, before we can have a people that will be together, we will have to leverage on our comparative economic advantages. What are those comparative economic advantages? They're the things you have in the South that we don't have in the North, things you have in the East that we don't have in the South or in the West. The primary objective here is to see how people will start realizing. And this has to be an instrument that government has to set, to prompt, to say, you know what, those people in Kano who export a 3-meter piece of leather by 3-meter piece of leather to Louis Vuitton, for example, at $3 a piece, can actually find out that here in Area Market in Aba, we have thousands of people in clusters that are, you know, manufacturing these leather shoes, bags, and belts, who still import their own local produce from places like Congo and Turkey. Why don't we have that synergy between Kano and Abia State, for example? What stops the governor of Kano, for example, and the governor of Abia to say, look, we need to come together and see how we can merge our people, because when we do that, economic viability will come out of it. These are the problems. These are the major issues. And so I heard some of us have been talking about security and, you know, what the plan is around security. With all due respect to the system, the Nigerian military, the army, the air force, I think the war that we're facing is not totally the one of guns and rockets, and, you know, I think it's a mental situation that we would have to engage with the people. And when we talk about this engagement with the people, what we're really talking about is to understand that, look, these people in those areas have been marginalized for so long. When you don't have schools, when you don't have hospitals, when you don't have social facilities that will engage the people will fall into the hands of the other people. So as I speak with you right now, more of the people in those areas are more in tune with Boko Haram than the Nigerian system itself. That's the government that they see. I tell you one thing, even if the government in Nigeria is good or bad, we're still going to be under that government. That's the same government that find themselves in the south, in the northeast. So you have Boko Haram, who has sort of controlled the entire system. And when we went to Borno State, for example, and you're trying to talk to the people, their major problem is that they are hungry. Their major problem is that they're disenfranchised, they're disconnected. They don't see Nigeria. They're closer to Chad and Niger Republic than they are to Nigeria. And I remember the last time somebody asked a question when Emmanuel Macron was here. They asked him very clearly, what's your government trying to do about the situation in the Northeast? And I remember what he said. He said, that's your problem. But in reality, we are concerned because Niger, Chad, and Cameroon are all colonies of the French. We need to start asking those deep questions. What is going on? That entire bed has so much that we don't want to talk about, and we feel that is why it's under attack.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Ahmed Buhari. I still would like to stay with you. You've been on this now for about 2 years and a half.
Yes.
In addition to what you have itemized, what, in your opinion, from your contacts, you have found to be the trouble with Nigeria, ancient and modern?
What was the last thing you said?
What is the trouble with Nigeria?
Ancient and modern. Okay, truly, why Nigeria used to work before. You know, when I try to engage some young people, especially those in universities, and you're trying to tell them about what you want Nigeria to be like. But in reality, what I tell them is what I saw when I was growing up. It was working. Things were right. But you see, when you start having a system when there are no consequences for your actions, there are no punishments and no rewards, depending on whichever route you take, then you are bound to have a system that becomes lawless. So when you start seeing how people who clearly have been, you know, itemized as maybe corrupt individuals in the society, and then you still see them going to collect chieftaincy titles or receiving national awards and honors, things like that, you do not find that society that you want. In all honesty, that is the problem with our country. So if we want to have the country work, if we want to have the system function, we do not have any choice. We would have to come out and say, you know what, our laws have got to work. And I've heard so many presidential candidates say so many things about what they want to do. But what we forget is we would have to understand that we run a three-system arm of government. So there's the executive, there's the legislative, and there's the judiciary. And if we do not harmonize these three together, it cannot function. Many people have asked me, why do you think this administration isn't functioning? And I said the reason why we even got into the race in the first place was because we saw a lack of connectivity between the three arms. Now, they don't have to agree all the time. They're there to checkmate each other. But their primary responsibility is to ensure that no matter how bad it gets, they find a resolve so that the Nigerian people's interest will come first.
All right, Ahmed Buhari, let's go to some specifics now. Well, after this, we'll go to Adu to tell us what's happening in the field with respect to your campaigns. But for now, let's be specific. What will you do with power? It has been a difficult, Herculean task, you know, for successive administration in this country. What will be your approach to power?
When we started, you know, working on what we have to do to power, we visited Kainji, we visited Jeba, we visited Shiro, we visited some other plants. And to be honest, the Gencos are functional. That's the truth. To be honest, the discos are not so bad. We probably need more. We probably need to reduce some of the load some of them are handling right now. But the fundamental problem is the fact that there is a policy that insists that everything generated from the Gencos must be sent to a national grid. Now, this national grid doesn't have the capacity to hold all that is coming from the Gencos, and that's where we have the disconnect. So I've been at a plant in Kainji. While they were there, they got a call from Ibadan saying, shut down, stop generation for some hours so that we can dissipate what we have. Otherwise, we will explode. It's a natural thing that happens every now and then. So each time that happens, what the ripple effect will become is that there's going to be a shortage of power. What we are saying is, all government needs to understand when it comes to raising money for itself or for the system is to realize that it does not have to be doing business. Government has no business being in business. What government is supposed to do is to be a regulatory body. The regulation that you put in place, the policies that you put in place just needs to be implemented and enforced and reinforced so that it works. And your primary responsibility as a government is to just supervise these things. When you make the private sector totally responsible for all this investment, it will work. There is absolutely nothing wrong with the system, other than we need to introduce more sources of energy, obviously. Whether we want to be talking about solar or we want to be talking about renewable energy, these things have got to come in place. And, you know, like we talked about agriculture, we've said it very clearly. If we don't have, if you're going to come in with agricultural implements and what have you, if it's not solar generated, then we're going to tax you. If it's solar generated, then you're going to get a waiver. And this is just to encourage people to start understanding that there are other things, there are other machineries that have been produced in the world now that even run on solar. So why do we have to go and get a processing plant that will require diesel or NEPA or power, whatever the case is, when in reality we can have solar generated implements?
All right, Ahmed Buhari, thank you very much. Let's now bring in Adu Onyolade, who is Director General of the Ahmed Buhari Campaign Organization. Tell us, what has been your experience with some very critical demographics, women and young persons?
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Well, it's been a long journey, 2.5 years, just like you said. It's so crazy when you get out there and you talk to people from like age of 18 to 25. We really don't know that we have so much problem in Nigeria because of some things. What is keeping the country together, if I tell you, is this birth center. It's so funny.
Is the what?
Birth center, game bet, all these game bet centers that people go to put in 50 naira.
Okay,
yes, and they get some money. We should give credence to those people. Those are the people that are keeping this country sane. Because these youths, the only thing they want to think about now, they've forgotten they have government. They have lost interest in government. What they are interested in is, oh, can you send me 1,000 naira? Maybe you will have been experiencing it. Your cousin or something will say, sir, can you just transfer 500 naira to me? It's so small. You will just say, okay, take.
I've not experienced it.
Oh, people experience it a lot. And then when you go out there, what do they use it for? They use it to bet. And you can't discourage them. Because one day somebody was reported to me as I was calling him. He gave me a very, very good... I said, you wanted to see me the other time. He told me point blank. He said, sir, I wanted to ask you to borrow me money for my house rent, but I played Niger Bet and I scored, I got money to pay. I couldn't tell him otherwise. Now, this is what is going on out there. Then on civil servant, we have discovered that maybe the NLC, the union are getting it wrong. Since I've been in existence, each time I hear NLC talk is when they start asking for increment in salary. I will not say it is wrong. What I will fault is it's not even increment in salary, it's adjustment in salary. Because you only increase what is kind of sufficient. It's adjustment. It is so bad, but they should have looked at it in another light, and that is what our party, we are planning to do. What is stopping civil servant from having tax return yearly? It is doable, and it will serve as a check and balance for taxpayers, people who collect VAT but don't remit to government. By the time you buy things from some places and you turn in your receipt to ask for your tax return, and that same person has not paid the tax into government. In Nigeria, what we have to try and do is to find how we can use check and balance to correct situations in the country.
When you were speaking to this category of persons, I talked about women and young persons, but you focus more on the young persons. Yeah. How did they receive your message, and what kind of message did you tell them? I don't know whether you were encouraging them to continue with their betting, or whether you made them realize, that a gambler is always eventually a loser.
Thank you. On the youth, we make them understand one clear fact, that they could be better. And then when you tell them a story of how we got to where we are, how it used to be, it's like they're reading novels. It will take more than words for them to actually change their mind. The best they can tell you is this, which is funny, which is where we have found ourselves. They're going to tell you that, sir, we've heard all what you say. We know, we have heard all these things. But, sir, when I vote for you, we know you have not stolen money, you have not been in government, but you still have to find us something. It still boils down to that our value system has been eroded. On the women.
Now, let me pause you on this.
Thank you.
I'm still with you for a while.
Yes.
Just tell us about your party, the spread of the party, the structure of the party, your preparedness for the election, and, which candidates do you have? I know you have a presidential candidate in Ahmed Buhari. Now, do you have other candidates in maybe House of Assembly, National Assembly, and what have you?
Yes, thank you. We have quite some spread, though even if it is not covering all the states in Nigeria. We have some gubernatorial aspirants, we have House of Assembly, we have quite numbers of House of Rep, we have a massive numbers of House of Assembly, because the party is quite young, and then it is being funded even by just well-wishers, friends, and personal pockets. And we are looking at, it is not how many people you put out there, but eventually someone could deploy over 300 and will not have one. It is how many that you're sure you're going to get back. Because I think INEC has a new regulation that when you can't get anything now, you will be flushed out. Thank you.
Ahmed Buhari, how expensive has this electioneering been for you and your party?
It has been expensive, and when we started, we tried to talk to young people, like you were asking my DG earlier about, what do you tell them? How do you wake up their consciousness to believe in that they need to participate in this kind of activities? And they tell you things, and we told them things like, look, there is no how you can get that good democracy, that good governance, if you don't pay for it. And what it means by paying for it means that you have to be actively participatory in all the processes that entails with the political space. And people must understand that if you want good governance, you will have to pay for it. Because at the end of the day, why we keep having this kind of demands from the populace when we visit them is because they are used to that system where we sit down, wait for electionary period, and we use it to rejuvenate ourselves, even though it's not going to last for more than a month. So what we keep telling people is that, look, if you want that good democracy, you would have to tighten your belts. You have to agree that good soup na money kill 'em. In clear terms, because there's no how you're going to get that good government after you've collected money from somebody that is campaigning around your locality. Where you say, give me money, and then you expect him to come back and give you the good dividends of democracy. He cannot do that,
How do you react to the claims by some pundits that almost invariably this is a two-horse race? That's to say the presidential election, or at best a three-horse race with a distant third party.
Yeah, many people have their opinions when it comes to political ratings. At the end of the day, we get to the polls and we see some different kind of results. Every single candidate I have met on this race would tell you that, I just got endorsement from the Niger Deltans, or I just got an endorsement from the Middle Belt. The Middle Belt just called me yesterday and said I'm the candidate for them. And I'm like, who did you meet there? And they call the name of somebody that I have met as well. So it's pretty funny. And at the end of the day, unfortunately, our politics is moved by money. So depending on how much money you are ready to throw to the people, they make the kind of declarations they want to make. And you asked earlier, how much has this cost us? It has cost us a lot. From friends, from supporters. When we started with a movement called the Reformation. And the Reformation, where it was just a run to see how we can get young people believing that, look, we can't just sit down on social media and be fighting ourselves. So what I did was to activate people from across the country to say, you know what, there is nobody that's been marginalized in this country. There are just two people that have been marginalized. There's just one people that have been marginalized, and the people that do not get all those basics. And that's the truth. The average man on the streets of Kano doesn't know if this country produces oil. And frankly speaking, he doesn't care. He just wants to eat food.
Okay, I just want to, Kieran, I wanted to take some tweets. Before we take those tweets, because he mentioned Kano, I was going to ask, gentlemen, you've been on now for about 2.5 years. Yes. During that period, Kano State organized local government elections. Did your party or your Sustainable National Party try to get a foot into local government administration?
In all honesty, at that time, our party was fresher than what it is now. You know, it was new. And so we didn't take part in that exercise. But we're in Osun State, and out of the 48 people that contested, we came 7th. So for us, that was a big boost to say, you know what, let's keep pushing. You may not get some of these things the way you want them. The number of people that we have fielded in, which is about 184, may not all get what we were looking for. But the truth of the matter is that we must activate the consciousness of those people to believe in that, look, you cannot just sit down on the back corner or on the sidelines and, you know, complain about these things and expect something different to happen.
I want to ask you this now as a round off for this conversation, and it's very important to you as a presidential candidate of a party.
Yes.
And these are two sectors of great importance.
Yes.
Education is one, and then agriculture.
So we've tried to talk about agriculture on surface level, but in all honesty, Nigeria will not be able to work if we do not have proper data management systems. Those proper data management systems are the things that would help us fight our insecurity situation. They're the things that will help us understand how much of agricultural involvement do we want to have, who is going to be involved in it, how many people do we want to take out of the joblessness area of our country. And then you talked about education. I've been hearing this particular administration saying that we are going to feed some children next year. But this country can't still tell me how many kids were given birth to last year. This country can't tell me how many people died last year. This country can't tell me, okay, fine, because we have the data of everybody, we know how to plan, we know how to forecast. There is no system that can work. You have a home, you have your wife, you have your children, and the only reason why you're able to know that you need 1 bag of rice for the year or half bag of rice for the year is because of the number of people you have in your household. We're running a country right now where we cannot even really tell how many people exist. And when you can't tell how many people exist, in reality, it's like you're just beating around the bush.
Well, Ahmed Buhari, thank you. But I just to chip in, there are some stats out there from both the National Population Commission and the National Bureau of Statistics, and indeed other experts. The country's population growth rate is put at 3.2%. Fertility rate is 5.5%. And Nigeria's population, according to the chairman, is 198 million. But that's not to open up another avenue.
It is to open up another thing, sir, because most of these figures are being borrowed from international communities, and I'm wondering, when do we have to do our own real research to get those actual figures?
That's what the National Bureau of Statistics does. All right, gentlemen, let's take tweets very quickly from our viewers. David Ebo, this is to Buhari. Say, good to see you, Ahmed Buhari, on Good Morning Nigeria. I look forward to seeing you at the debates. Please keep your ambition going. Nigeria needs people like yourself, Mogalu, Duro Toye, Ezekwesili, Shawore, and of course, he asked himself. That's David Ebo. I don't know whether he's a candidate as well. But
or whether his party is still in the making. You know. All right, maybe his party is at the incubation level.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Delajak Solomon says, just as we have reiterated on this platform, the blueprints of these new political parties are viable to reform Nigeria in all ramifications, but Rome wasn't built in a day.
And Ibrahim Tudu has this tweet. He says, when finally these political parties lose I hope they will stay with the masses. The 90-plus political parties, when engaged effectively in community work with other CSOs after the 2019 elections, Nigeria will gain a lot. That's from the back.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for coming here this morning. Well, Nigerians have had you. We wish you all the best as the election draws nearer. Adu Onyela is the Director General of Ahmed Buhari Campaign Organization. Thank you indeed for coming. And
thank
of course,
you so much.
Presidential candidate of the Sustainable National Party, Ahmed Buhari, we thank you for coming.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right, now...